The defiant eyes, the half-smile, that platinum blonde hair, spiked like flames, and a voice howling, wild like it was setting the stage on fire. Billy Idol wasn't just a singer, he was the storm of rebellion that swept through the 1980s, dragging punk rock from the streets of London straight into the glare of MTV's global spotlight. From a broke kid with nothing to his name, Billy built his own music empire, a fortune worth over $60 million, a lavish mansion tucked into the Hollywood Hills, and a fleet of roaring supercars, each one echoing the raw power of his stage screams. But behind the lights, there were secrets that once shocked the world: a near-fatal motorcycle crash, drug overdoses outside nightclubs, a scandal in Thailand that almost got him deported, and a childhood spent drifting with nowhere to call home. How did a poor boy from Worthing rise to the peak of Hollywood's fame, and what keeps him? Even at 69, coming back to the stage, this is the story of Billy Idol, a rebel who never bowed, and a legacy that still burns bright to this day. If you enjoy videos like this, please hit the like button. It truly helps us out, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever imagined a poor, displaced boy with no stable home becoming a rock icon, living in a multi-million-dollar mansion, adored by millions? This is the journey of Billy Idol, from hardship to spotlight, a story that proves even the wildest dreams can come true. Born William Broad in 1955 in the small town of Worthing, England, Billy grew up in a struggling household. His father worked as a salesman, while his Irish-born mother carried with her a spirit of resilience. Meals were often meager, nights were sometimes hungry. Those early memories left a lasting mark on young Billy. When he was just 2, the family took a leap of faith and moved to Patchogue, New York, chasing the American dream. But the reality was cold apartments, an absent father, and a mother juggling a newborn daughter, Jane. "We don't belong here," Billy once thought. That sense of being out of place followed him like a shadow. After 4 years, they returned to England, but life didn't settle. They bounced from Dorking to Goring by Sea, and Billy remained the perpetual new kid at every school. Labeled a troublemaker, Billy eventually found his escape in music. Do you remember a song that once hit you so hard, it felt like it understood you? For Billy, that song came from the Sex Pistols. At 15, living in Bromley on the outskirts of London, he first heard the raw, defiant sound of punk, and it shook him to the core. Punk wasn't just noise, it was the voice of a restless generation, of kids like Billy who just wanted to be heard. One night in 1975, at age 19, Billy stood in front of a mirror, dyed his hair a bold shade, and declared, "I won't live in silence." He dropped out of Sussex University, turning away from a safe path to chase the fire of punk rock. Would that leap of faith lead him to stardom, or was it just a reckless dream? How did a kid nobody noticed become a legend on stage? With roaring crowds, a Ferrari in the driveway, and $1 million mansion in the hills. Billy Idol didn't enter the music world as a polished, up-and-coming star. He came in screaming raw voice, fearless eyes, and a presence that didn't ask for permission. On smoky club stages, surrounded by swaying bodies and bloodshot eyes, Billy stood alone, no introduction, no approval needed. After dropping out of Sussex University, Billy dove headfirst into punk, a youth-driven undercurrent sweeping across post-war Britain. In 1976, he joined Generation X, bringing with him a defiant platinum blonde hairstyle and an unshakable belief punk wasn't just music, it was a voice for those the world had left behind. The band started to gain traction in underground circles. The name Billy Idol began to spread fierce image, sharp style, and an energy no one could ignore. But off stage, he was still the same young man, crashing on friends' floors, eating cold bread, chasing a dream with whatever loose change he could pull together from a night's gig. Generation X dissolved in 1980. Just as fame flickered, it vanished. Billy, 25 years old, found himself alone in London. No band, no contract, no clear direction. But instead of retreating, he chose to start over. He left England and headed to New York, a city of strangers and challenges, but also a place where bigger dreams could be realized. There, he met Steve Stevens, a guitar virtuoso with razor-sharp ears and riffs that cut like steel. They couldn't have been more different, but they shared the same hunger to create music no one could ignore. In 1982, Billy released his debut solo album, with White Wedding marking his return. This time, there was nothing half-hearted about it. The night before the biggest show of his life, Billy stood quietly in his old apartment. The yellow glow of a bare light bulb lit up his spiked silver hair. Outside, New York buzzed with noise, but inside the room there was only silence, and a single question hanging in the air: would his voice be enough to fill the emptiness that had followed him since childhood? The answer came in 1983 when Rebel Yell exploded across radio stations and stages around the world, in front of 20,000 fans. Billy Idol belted out his first lyric not as a drifter, but as the new face of a defiant generation. The boy who once didn't have a bed of his own now stood beneath a blaze of lights, leading a sea of fans headbanging to his beat. A few years later, Billy was living in a multi-million-dollar mansion in the Hollywood Hills, driving a red Ferrari, surrounded by everything that once felt impossible to reach. But the higher the lights shine, the longer the shadow they cast. Fame can give a man everything, but sometimes it takes away the one thing he can't replace: himself. Billy Idol was never a man of numbers. He belonged to moments, the screech of a guitar like an electric shock, the spotlight catching his flame-white hair, and a crowd holding its breath before the scream of Rebel Yell. Yet it was those moments that built a career no chart could ever fully capture. For over 4 decades, Billy became the face that defined the 80s, not just through sound, but through image. The leather jacket, the provocative stare, hair that looked like fire under stage lights. He didn't blend in, he stood out, boldly, unmistakably. White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face, Rebel Yell, Cradle of Love. Each hit was a declaration from a rebel who never bowed. Rebel Yell catapulted him to international stardom. Charmed Life earned him a Grammy nomination. Cradle of Love took home an MTV Video Music Award. He wasn't just a rocker anymore, he was an MTV icon, a regular on television, radio, and magazine covers, a cultural force in 1980s America. But the spotlight was no place for the faint of heart. Between hundreds of shows, non-stop studio sessions, and the whirlwind of fame, Billy began to feel a growing emptiness behind the curtain. City after city, hotel room after hotel room, each landing brought silence. The success was real, but so was the distance it created between him and himself. He once admitted there were times he slept just 3 hours a night, filling the rest with songwriting, interviews, and parties full of laughter where no one really meant it. Still, Billy found a way to hold on, unlike many of his peers. He didn't fade from the stage. Through global tours, music royalties, smart investments, and endorsement deals, he built and maintained a personal fortune of $60 million as of 2024 and held onto it for decades. From a homeless kid in Patchogue to an artist who defined an era, Billy Idol didn't just survive on passion, he prospered from the very thing people once mocked him for: being different. When the applause fades and the lights dim, the stage closes. But for Billy Idol, home has never just meant shelter. It reflects a journey from a boy crashing on friends' floors to a man standing in spaces entirely his own. Atop Hollywood Hills, on winding roads lined with sports cars and stardom, Billy's main residence is a glass observatory overlooking the lights of Los Angeles like a mirror into his past, spanning over 4,000 square feet. The home features floor-to-ceiling glass walls, as if he's still facing the audience, still watching everything while no one truly sees him. A spiral staircase curves through the open space like a slow guitar solo, leading down to a Playboy Mansion-style pool. It's where he once hosted endless parties, only to drink his coffee alone the next morning in silence. The interiors blend steel, glass, and soft golden light, not to flaunt wealth, but to preserve a feeling of space. No one can control him, and not even time. Here, he doesn't need to sing to be heard, he just needs quiet. His second home in Los Angeles, sold in 2024 for $7.2 million, told a different story, more discreet, more contemplative. It opened to a Zen garden through wide glass doors, where koi swam silently under bamboo shadows. A private sky just high enough to see everything, and just hidden enough not to be seen. Inside, Antique Italian chandeliers, natural light streaming down bare walls, and a single guitar left out not for show but for playing when emotion calls. 2 homes, 2 lives, 1 man. Billy Idol, the explosive youth and the calmer, wiser soul, still sharp, still present, and both, in truth, are verses of the same song. Some screamed, some lingered. From cramped rentals without even a private window to homes that face the Hollywood sign, Billy never forgot where he came from. But now, he no longer fears admitting he's arrived at a place few ever reach. If real estate offers Billy peace after the spotlight, then the garage is where he keeps the noise no longer from fans, but from engines, in a world louder than ever with artificial flash. Billy chooses what's real, what's powerful, and what needs no explanation. His garage isn't huge, but every car is a chapter in a silent memoir. At the center sits an AC Cobra 427, every classic speed lover's holy grail, 425 horsepower, polished aluminum body, silent silver gray paint like a sleeping beast, worth nearly $800,000. It's not for city drives. It was made for the open road where there's nothing but speed and freedom, Billy once said. That's the kind of car that reminds you you're alive. Beside it is a Ferrari 458 Italia. Deep red like aged wine, low to the ground, hugging the pavement. It may not flash like today's supercars, but every curve says one thing: the driver doesn't need to be seen, just needs to see the road. Its price ranges from $90,000 to $140,000 depending on the build. But for Billy, value isn't in the brand, it's in the feeling of slipping down Sunset Boulevard late at night, like a guitar string sliding through the dark. Unheard but played with soul. Earlier in his career, Billy owned several high-powered motorcycles, part of his bad boy rocker image, but after a near-fatal crash in 1990, he gave them up for good. Since then, cars became the only speed in his life. When he was young, he drove to outrun time. Now, he drives to remember who he once was. The garage isn't for showing off, it's where he keeps the noise, after the world goes quiet. Each car is a verse, no lyrics, no stage, but still saying one thing clearly: Billy Idol doesn't need to scream anymore. Even his engine has rhythm. Some artists live to rebel, some rebel to survive. For Billy Idol, the surprise is, beneath all that fire and flash, he's chosen a life quieter than anyone expected. Though he's still known for that iconic bad boy image, leather jackets, defiant eyes, and fiery concerts behind the scenes, Billy's daily routine tells a different story. He doesn't drink, doesn't use drugs, doesn't live recklessly. What was once part of a wild youth is now just memory and hard-earned lessons he has no desire to repeat. These days, he often rises early, drinks a black coffee, opens a window to feel the breeze from Hollywood Hills. Some mornings, he feeds the koi. Other times, he just stands in stillness, watching the sky change. He still dresses in black, still looks the part of a rocker. But his steps are slower now, not from age, but from no longer needing to run. Interestingly, Billy's been a lifelong smoker but maintains a relatively healthy diet. No fads, no trends. Just a man who listens to his body, the same way a musician listens to the rhythm before playing the first note. And when it comes to family, he's never called himself a family man. But those who've known Billy closely understand his loyalty and calm don't make headlines. But they show in how he holds on to old friendships, cares for his children, and honors the life he's built. Billy Idol doesn't live like a legend. He lives like someone who's touched it and is now learning how to hold on to it with clarity. Fame never comes alone. It brings pressure, expectations, and sometimes whispers that lead you off course. In the 1980s, Billy Idol was the face of controlled rebellion. But as the 90s began, that control started to slip. The 1990 motorcycle accident was the first real fall, not just physically, but emotionally. Billy nearly lost his leg. Doctors had to remove muscle, insert metal pins, and build a support frame inside his thigh. It was the kind of injury that could have ended his ability to perform. While fans believed he was just taking a break, the truth was far more brutal. Billy was bedridden for months, dependent on painkillers, opening the door to something even more dangerous. The following years sent Billy into a downward spiral. Heroin, cocaine, GHB. Drugs became constant companions. He missed major appearances, tours were cancelled, and he was frequently seen looking gaunt and worn down. Both the British and American media had the same headline, "The Fallen Star Burning Himself Out." The lowest point came in 1994. Billy overdosed on GHB right outside a nightclub in Los Angeles. He collapsed on the sidewalk, surrounded by pounding music and flashing ambulance lights. A photo of that moment, his body limp, like a ghost in the very city that once worshipped him, spread across tabloids almost overnight. Many believed it was the final chapter of a punk rock legend. Around that time, his personal life also unraveled. He was tied to short-lived, chaotic relationships. There were reports of public fights and even a near deportation from Thailand after a hotel incident that the press feasted on throughout the 1990s. The image of the seductive bad boy began to fade, replaced by that of a lost artist on a downward path. But Billy refused to let that be the final word. He quit drugs completely in 2003, triggered not by a headline, not by a contract, but by a single look from his son. Willem, then just 6 years old, looked at his father with fear in his eyes. That look, not the stage, not the awards, was what scared Billy most. He entered a serious recovery program, stayed clean, committed to regular workouts, and kept a disciplined diet. In 2005, he made a powerful return with the album Devil's Playground, gritty, sharp, and more true to Billy Idol than ever before. It wasn't just a record, it was a statement: I'm still here, still creating, and I don't need anything artificial to do it. In his 2014 memoir, Dancing with Myself, Billy didn't hold back. He detailed every fall, every overdose, every broken relationship. The mornings he woke up not knowing who he was, but woven through those pages was something unmistakable. This was a man who had walked through hell and chose to live on, with a clear mind and a beating heart. The scandals that nearly consumed Billy Idol today, they lie as ashes beneath the feet of a man who never stopped moving forward. At 60, while many of his peers had faded into the background or become distant memories, Billy Idol returned to the stage with Kings and Queens of the Underground 2014, an album filled with reflection, yet pulsing with energy, as if he had never left. That voice, still gravelly, still fierce, but behind the soaring notes, there was something deeper, the sound of someone who had survived. His comeback wasn't about reliving old glory, it was about saying, "I'm still here, and if I made it through, you can too." With over 40 years of dedication, Billy left behind a musical legacy that won't be erased. Tens of millions of albums sold, iconic hits like Rebel Yell, White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face, and Cradle of Love still played daily on radio and across modern playlists. Dozens of awards and nominations from the Grammys, MTV, and ASCAP, a fashion style that inspired an entire generation of young rockers. But perhaps his greatest legacy doesn't live in studios or trophies. It lives in his story, a story of resilience. In his memoir, Dancing with Myself, he didn't hide the pain, the mistakes, or the moments when it felt like he couldn't go on. But by sharing those truths, Billy became something more than a musician. He became a companion to anyone who's ever lost their way. He inspires not through perfection, but through the way he fell and got back up. Today, Billy Idol is a grandfather of two. He lives more quietly now, still performs from time to time, still writes, still wears his signature sunglasses, still stomps his boot on the wooden stage when the music builds. But now, it's no longer to rebel, it's to bridge the gap between youth and memory. From a lost immigrant boy to a global punk icon, Billy Idol is living proof that no matter where you start, if your heart still beats and your will stays strong, you can rewrite your story. What people may remember most about Billy Idol isn't the platinum hair or the screaming guitars. It's the image of someone who once rebelled, once fell, once lost it all, but still chose to keep going and never let the fire in his eyes burn out. Have you ever lived through a time like that when everything seemed to break, but somehow became the foundation for something better? Feel free to share your story in the comments. And if you want to keep walking alongside journeys like this of those who stumbled, stood back up, and kept shining, make sure to hit subscribe so we never miss what matters next.